Welcome. What I like to do is just kind of create an introductory video on how to graph an equation using slope-intercept form. And this is going to be kind of a generic video that you can use to apply to the rest of these problems. So the first thing that I always like to do when we have an equation that is written in the form mx plus b, or if it's not written in the form, we want to put it into that form of y equals mx plus b. So the first thing I always like to do is identify your slope and your y-intercept. Okay? Now, a lot of times this is pretty obvious to be able to do, but sometimes we've got to do some work or some moving around to be able to get it into this form. But remember, your slope is just m, right? And it's also very important. I'll keep that thing. Slope is m, and then remember your y-intercept is equal to b. All right? So we identify, say, hey, here's the slope, here's the y-intercept. And a lot of times, you could say, oh, hey, there's slope, there's my y-intercept. All right? Now, the next thing, before I even start getting graphing, I like to write my slope as a fraction. All right? And this becomes very important, especially if I have, let's say, m equals 3. Well, then I want to write this as a fraction of 3 over 1, because that's going to help me when I'm plotting my points. The next thing is, what about if I had it as not only write your slope as a fraction, but if you have a negative symbol, put that in the numerator or the denominator. So an important thing to understand is, if I have negative 4/2, please note that that's the same thing as negative 4 over 2, which is equal to 4 over negative 2. So if I have a slope of m equals, let's see, negative 1/2, just write that, just choose, all right, I'm going to put the negative sign in the numerator or put this negative sign in the denominator. But make a choice. Put it in one or the other, because you got to stick to something as we're going to be graphing. The next thing is the y-intercept. Write the y-intercept as a point. And it gets confusing a lot of times when students see this in the equation. They just see it as a number. But remember, it is a number of what y equals, because that's where the graph crosses. But we like to plot it as a point. So if I say, if you have your equation and you say, hey, the y-intercept is equal to 8, we'll write it as a point, 0, 8. And why is that going to be helpful? Because the next step is plot the y-intercept. And if you have the y-intercept as a point, you can just say, all right, 0, 8. 0 means I'm not going to go left or right at all. I'm just going to go up 8 units. So you plot the y-intercept. The next thing is you're going to use the slope to find the next point. And another very, very important is from the y-intercept. All right. So what we're going to do is use the slope to find the next point. So the main important thing, so if you have 8, and let's say your slope is 1/2, then you're going to say, all right, the change in y is 1, so I'm going to go up 1 from 8. And then the change in x is negative 2. So then you'd go to the left 2. So you're going to use your slope from the y-intercept to find the next point. And the last step is to connect your 2 points and extend. So it's very important. A line contains infinite many points. That means it extends in a positive and a negative direction. So a lot of times, when we're connecting points, let's say you have a point here and a point here, students go this. But remember, this graph extends in the negative direction. That's why we say, you can go negative or you can go negative on here. It doesn't matter. You got to go both ways. So make sure when you connect your y-intercept with your slope, you extend in both directions. And there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is just a quick overview of how to graph using slope-intercept form. Thanks.